and thank you for listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I am DJ Gel, and in an hour, we will have the news, the weather, and then GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday, except last Wednesday, from noon to 3 p.m. But in the middle of all this, probably sometime in the noon zone, we're going to have an interview with a group of people who would like to talk about the fact that the place you're driving through or listening at right now is kind of a nuclear hazard zone. Yeah, we've got a big old nuclear fire raging underground, and that's not good, and they'd like to talk about it. So I will be interviewing them as soon as they get done giving their talk over in the student center, and we will see how that goes. It's a little bit of a break from what we normally do on GameBabble, but it's also what we would consider important news. You know, the fact that radiation is murdering us all. So, please, stay tuned until noon, and past noon. Stay tuned at noon for GameBabble Live, the news, the weather, and a very, hopefully, fascinating interview. Anyway, back to the music here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Let's see how diverse this music gets. Thank you for listening. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I am DJ Gel, and I will be bringing you GameBabble Live at noon after we do the news and weather. So at noon, news, weather, GameBabble Live, and at some point when they get done doing their talk in the student center, I think it's in the student center, we've got some people here that I'm going to be doing an interview with to talk about the fact that we have a big old nuclear fire raging underground that has been for years, and that's a little beyond disconcerting, and they've got information and things to talk about, so you might want to stay tuned for that. So be sure to be here around noon for news, weather, GameBabble Live, a likely fascinating interview, and then more GameBabble Live. Until then, though, please enjoy the music and stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening. You are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, DJ Gel, and at noon, we will have the news, the weather, and GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. And on top of that, sometime, probably early on in the show, we will have some guests that have nothing to do with GameBabble, but everything to do with KCFV and you. They will be here to talk about the fact that we have a raging nuclear fire underground. Did you know that? Yeah, not great. But these guys will probably be great and tell some very fascinating things about the horrible nuclear doom fire that is under us at this very moment, and has been for like a year or two. So yeah, actually probably more than 2 years. I don't know. They'll tell me. They know that. That's their specialty. They're currently giving a talk on campus, and when they're done, they'll be down here. I'll be interviewing them, and then we'll get back to video games. But I think this might be something you might want to stick around for. So be sure to be here around noon for weather, news, video game information, and some people telling us about the horrible doom fire. Until then, let's get back to the music to put our minds off the horrible doom fire. Here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you for listening. Though it feels like 36 degrees, here on the campus of Florissant Valley Community College. I'm Gel with your noon news update. Groundbreaking for Officer Flamian's new home in Baldwin, Missouri. The Gary Sinise Foundation is building a new home for Officer Mike Flamian. The Baldwin police officer was left paralyzed after a shooting. Since then, the community has rallied to raise money for his family. A groundbreaking ceremony took place yesterday morning at the site where his new home will be built in West County. This is the first time the Gary Sinise Foundation has decided to build a home for a first responder. It normally builds homes for military veterans. Barack Obama's birthday won't be an Illinois holiday. Barack Obama's birthday won't be an Illinois holiday. Yesterday, lawmakers in the Illinois House voted down a proposal to designate the former president's birthday as a state holiday. The proposal would have closed state offices and schools each year on August 4th. And Schlafly to offer canned beer again. Schlafly is planning to offer beer in cans once again. The Maplewood-based beer company is planning to launch a line of canned beers on April 2nd. It plans to offer 3 canned beers year-round: Kolsch, Expo IPA, and White Lager. In the national news, the Gorsuch hearing continues. Federal Judge Neil Gorsuch is taking more questions from senators as his confirmation hearing moves into the 3rd day. Gorsuch is President Trump's pick to replace Justice Antonin Scalia on the U.S. Supreme Court. Scalia died more than a year ago, but Senate Republicans refused to take up the nominations of former President Obama's pick, Judge Merrick Garland. In what will be his second full day of questioning, Gorsuch was pressed again about judicial independence. He insisted that he looks at each case individually and tries to follow the facts to the law. Trump meets with Congressional Black Caucus. President Trump meets with the leaders of the Congressional Black Caucus today at the White House. Louisiana Congressman Cedric Richmond said he and 5 executive committee members will meet face-to-face with the president to discuss issues important to the African-American community. They will include health care, the proposed budget, and criminal justice reform. Trump faced criticism last month when he asked a black reporter during a press conference to set up a meeting with the caucus. Soda tax pushes Pepsi to switch to smaller bottles. Philadelphia's soda tax is forcing Pepsi to change what products it offers there. The soda drink giant says it is pulling 12-packs and 2-liter bottles from stores and replacing them with smaller bottles. The tax on sweetened and diet beverages is levied per ounce, and Pepsi says it wants to offer sizes working families can better afford. Coca-Cola is also shifting its focus to smaller size containers. Both soft drink makers have announced layoffs linked to declining sales. And the Tomb of Jesus reopened to visitors. The church that houses what is believed to be the Tomb of Jesus is now officially reopened after a ceremony today. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City just underwent a multi-million-dollar restoration, the first in about 200 years. The restoration work was badly needed, but was put off by disputes among the religious denominations that managed the site. The shrine surrounding the tomb was heavily damaged from centuries of candle smoke and moisture. Inside the cave where Jesus is said to have been placed, teams found slabs dating back to the era of Constantine the Great in the 4th century. And now, the weather. This is where things get interesting. Today it is partly cloudy, high of 51 degrees, low of 38 degrees. Hope it gets up to 51 soon because I did not bring a jacket. It was such a nice day yesterday. Tomorrow, Thursday, it will be cloudy, high of 62, low of 57. Much nicer day. Friday, mostly cloudy, but hey, high of 73, low of 58, but still nice day. Saturday, we got some thunderstorms with a high of 66 and a low of 49. And Sunday, we got some morning showers with a high of 63 and a low of 49. Looking at the 10-day forecast, we've basically got temperatures in the mid-60s for as far into the future as they're letting me see. And that, my good friends, concludes your news and weather. Now, please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind, for GameBabble Live, and also an interview about the nuclear fire raging underground. So I'm going to kick y'all back to the music for just a minute, and when we get back, we'll see where we go from here. Thank you for listening, and please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this, my good friends, is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. You know what's best in life? 'Cause I don't, but you know what isn't best in life? When, you write up a big old list of things to talk about, and you copy it to your flash drive, and then you get to the station, and you open it up, and it's completely blank. I've pretty much rebuilt it, but that means that we're going to have to do the new video game releases a little bit awkwardly. Normally, I do all the systems at once. This time, I'm going to go through them system by system. So, excuse me about that one. We just had some technical difficulties. So, PlayStation 4, that's generally where we start. What came out this week? We got Anima Gate of Memories Beyond Fantasy Edition. I'm sorry, I'm looking... Yeah, no, that was... Why does it say... So, I'm looking on this list, and it says Berserk and the Band of the Hawk, which, I don't know, kinda came out like 2-3 weeks ago. So I don't know what it's doing on here, but it's still out there. Okay, Anima Gates of Memory Beyond Fantasy Edition, Death Tales. There we go, that's one that's actually new. Also, Everything! There's a game called Everything. I think it's sort of a universe sim type thing. More importantly, though, Freedom Planet has hit PlayStation 4. That is a sort of indie Sonic clone that's been out on PC for a while, and there's a demo, which I highly recommend you try. There's a demo for the sequel that's in development right now. Really, really stupidly good game. I can't say enough good things about it. Definitely track down the demo and give it a chance. Goat Simulator, Waste of Space. And speaking of Waste of Space, Mass Effect Andromeda came out. And it's the laughing stock of the internet right now. We'll talk a little more about that a little bit later. I hear it still has positive aspects, but it's an interesting thing. Mass Effect Andromeda has apparently been a pretty wild ride. Also, Rayon Riddles, Rise of the Goblin King, Royal Defense, Sniper Elite 4 Deathstorm, Sniper Elite 4 Night Fighter Expansion Pack, Touhou Double Focus, which is a side-scrolling Metroidvania Touhou game that is not it's not the really Metroidvania-y one, but it's still the same style, and Touhou Genso Wanderer, which is a top-down view of more... Obviously, it's named after Shiren the Wanderer, so it's a randomly generated dungeon. Roguelike, that's the word I'm looking for, roguelike. It's roguelike. And, Tokiden 2, and a game called Troll and I. And, let's see, today we have This Is the Police coming out for PlayStation 4. Don't know a whole lot about that. And tomorrow, Titanfall 2 Colony, so I guess that's an expansion pack. And day after that, 88 Heroes, Deformers, Dreamfall Chapters, and Zero Escape, the Nunnery games. On the 3DS, we have Super Destronaut 3D that came out, and, that comes out tomorrow, and then day after tomorrow, we have Mario Sports Superstars, which is like a compilation pack. It's all new. It's not like ports, but it's 5 different sports. They have, tennis, soccer, horseback riding, baseball, and golf. And I'm interested to see how that turns out. It is made by Camelot Software Planning, which are the people who do Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, but are not the people who do Mario Strikers. So I'm interested to see if they can even come close to the majesty that is Mario Strikers. Because that was good. The original one on GameCube, anyway. The Wii one was kind of a broken mess, but the one on GameCube was good. Hey, how about that Xbox One? What's it up to? Well, let's see. This week, Mass Effect Andromeda came out on Xbox One as well. Sniper Elite 4, Deathstorm and Night Fighter Expansion Pack, and Troll and I, and This Is the Police today. Titanfall 2 Colony, 88 Heroes, Deformers, and Dreamfall Chapters. Yeah, I know, that's a lot shorter than the PlayStation 4 release list, but that's what I got. Go on Game FAQs. look up the release list, look up what games are coming out, look on PlayStation 4, look on Xbox One. It's actually kind of sad, but not as sad as the Nintendo Switch. Hey, what you up to, Nintendo Switch? Let's see. Tomorrow, New Frontier Days, Founding Pioneers, and Othello come out for Nintendo Switch. That's good. Now, let's move on to next week. Next week on the Nintendo Switch, we've got Has-Been Heroes and Snake Pass. Also, next week on the Xbox One, we've got Has-Been Heroes and Snake Pass. Also, Vikings, Wolves of Midgard, RBI Baseball 17, Dark Souls 3, The Ringed City. So, hey, Dark Souls 3 expansion pack, and Anaxima? The heck is Anaxima? Looks like some kind of underwater exploration game. Good times. 3DS. Nothing next week on 3DS. PlayStation 4. What have you got for us next week? Well, they've got Infinifactory, Dark Souls 3, The Ringed City, God Wars Future Past Limited Edition, Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix, MLB The Show 17 Digital Deluxe Edition, Rain World, and Snake Pass, and Viking Wolves of Midgard, but not, what's that other game? Not Has-Been Heroes for PlayStation 4. Interesting. Oh. And then on my, I swear those games already came out. They must be getting, I bet they're getting boxed releases. I see for the 31st, we've got Asta Breed and Mitsurugi Kamui Hikae coming out, along with Pang Adventures and Warhammer 40,000 Eternal Crusade. So, yeah, that sums up the new games that are coming out in the next few weeks. But now it's time for the Anime in Theaters report, because we finally have a date on the first, what's that thing called? Anime Movie Night from Crunchyroll. So, April 7th, Your Name will be in theaters. That's supposed to be a big, fancy, crazy movie that everyone's raving about. Like, people are saying it deserved an Oscar, highest grossing film in Japan. It's a big, honking deal, this Your Name movie. And that'll be here April 7th. And on April 26th, we get the first of the Crunchyroll Anime Movie Night things, and it is Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress double feature of the recap movies. Basically, they take the entire TV series, condense it down into a movie, make some new scenes as well to tie it all together, and basically get a condensed version of the anime series. And it will be aired as a double feature on April 26th as part of one night event as part of Anime Movie Night. Your Name should actually be in theaters for like a week or two. And also, live action Ghost in the Shell is like March 30th or something. I don't know. Like, I'm really on the fence about that live action Ghost in the Shell. Especially finding out they actually changed the main character's name. Like, there's, the general word on the street is that they remade a bunch of iconic scenes, but that it's, and it, like, looks really good, but that it's missing the philosophical aspects of the original Ghost in the Shell. Still on the fence on if I want to see it or not. Like, part of me is like, I want to see it, and part of me is like, I don't want to see it. Either way, those are our video game news and releases and all sorts of other things at the Anime in Theaters. So, what's coming up on the show? Well, obviously, we'll be taking a minute to talk about the Mass Effect Andromeda thing. I'll also talk about a game called Chaos Code, which came out. I mentioned it on the show once or twice before. Well, now it's finally here in America, and that game is amazing. I did get to spend some time with the Nintendo Switch. That's probably where I should lead off. And also, this is important to me, Waku Waku 7 got a Nintendo Switch release in America. This is very important to me personally, because it is the first actual U.S. home release of Waku Waku 7. It's favorite fighting game of all time. I guess it had a limited U.S. arcade release, but in terms of, like, actual home releases, none of the home ports ever came to America until the Switch. I didn't have to make a Japanese account. It's here. I'm happy. Also got my hands on Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash, so I'm going to give you the best rundown and information I can within FCC guidelines. And I've got some other things to ramble about, but I think now would be a good time for a brief musical break. So please stay tuned. We've got a local artist called LG with a song called I Love Music, because it is noon and that's our local artist time. So I'm going to kick you back to the music, and when I come back, we'll talk about Nintendo Switch. Let's talk Nintendo Switch when we get back. Anyway, this is Jell, and you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave, diverse music, diverse mind. This is GameBabble Live. Please enjoy the music, and thank you for listening. Hello, and kinda sorta welcome back to GameBabble Live on 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Why do I say kinda sorta back? Well, guess what? Remember how I said we were going to interview some people about the fact that we've got a crazy nuclear fire burning underground and that's really bad? Well, they're here, in the station. But we haven't set up the interview booth yet. So that's a thing that's going to happen really soon, so we're probably going to do another song and get them set up. In theory. Actually, you know what? No. Because they look like they're having a good time over there in the studio just talking about all sorts of who knows what. So we will, let's do talk about the Nintendo Switch real quick, like, because I did get a chance to get my hands on one briefly. I don't yet have it. It's a birthday present is what I'm saying. My Nintendo Switch came. I have a friend in Michigan who pre-ordered a spare one, sent it to me. I gave her the money. She sent it to me, and I was like, I want this to be a birthday present, but I want to make sure that it actually works, so I did crack it open and give it a spin. And, yeah, number one, it worked. I did not try it out on the, what's it called, the charging base thing that sends the video to the TV, the docking station. That's what I'm thinking about. But looking inside of that, the docking station didn't feel as cheap as I expected, but it was very poorly designed, because I looked inside of there, and there's like 4 very sharp plastic blocks, and I'm just like inside of there to hold the Switch in place, and I'm just looking at them, and I'm like, well, that's what's going to scratch your screen. You should have made those out of foam. Those literally look like the little blocks that you would have made out of foam to clamp that in there. The charging cable being on the bottom of the unit, of the Switch unit, was a very bad idea. And I will definitely say, those controllers are not great for fighting games. I tried, because, at the same time, a friend of mine gave me points to go buy Waku Waku 7 for my Switch. So I did try that out, and I was able to play it 2-player with the 2 half controllers. Did not yet run a test on the controllers to see what their range was, but I've got some good news on that front. Nintendo is fixing the busted Nintendo Switch controllers. If you have a left Joy-Con that is not working out for you, send it back to Nintendo and they'll shove some conductive foam in them. And according to, I think it was according to CNET, they went out and bought a newer Nintendo Switch controller and it was already fixed and didn't have the foam in it. So Nintendo's aware of the issue. They've got a fix for it. You can send them your controllers back and they'll get them fixed up. And all the new controllers do not have this issue, so yay for that. But, yeah, so the Switch seemed to be working. I will say setting up an account was a pain, though, because what they said was I needed a Nintendo ID. And I'm like, yeah, well, I want to, since I'm going to be getting some Nintendo points from a friend, I want to make sure that's in the same wallet as the ones from my Wii U and 3DS. And so I tried to get that all set up, and I couldn't find my Nintendo ID. That's because your Nintendo ID is different from your Nintendo Network ID. Can we just stick to one thing, Nintendo, please? You had a thing going with the Wii U, and that just, I felt that the system did not feel anywhere near as flimsy as I thought, except for the kickstand. The kickstand that lets you prop up the screen, which is really cute and all that. Ugh, that thing did not. That thing felt really, really flimsy. I am seeing some interesting screen protection options floating around on the internet that I'm going to need to look into. I hear that, though, that this one company said they will not be releasing any controller or system skins for the Nintendo Switch because they found their adhesive, tears off the coating of the system. And yeah, it's not exactly a typical system coating. It doesn't feel bad, but I guess I can kind of see that. If they say that's what happens. So that's an interesting thing. I have not spent a lot of time with the Switch, but I did poke at it, and that is a really, really pathetic looking launch lineup. I went in there and I'm like, where's the everything? The shop is just completely barren. There's nothing there. There's 9 games. And, it'll build up over time, but I think the Japanese shop might be less embarrassing, and I don't know. We'll see how things progress, but I know that earlier someone did ask me, someone did say, hey, I'm going to be getting a console soon. What should I get, the Switch or the PlayStation 4? And I said, as much of a Nintendo fan as I am, to the point of going on this show and defending the Switch, I said PlayStation 4. Because the Switch needs at least a year to garner some interesting games and get going. Once we have Splatoon 2 and ARMS and Super Mario Odyssey, then it's going to be a solid. It has something to work with there. But until that happens, things on the Switch look a bit dicey. I will say, though, that I am happy that I finally have an official U.S. release of Waku Waku 7. I mentioned earlier that that's my favorite fighting game of all time. I actually have the Neo Geo AES home cart. That's the home cartridge system for the Neo Geo. I have the one for Waku Waku 7. I have the Saturn version on the Sega Saturn. I have the PlayStation 2 version that was released only in Japan as well. I love that game. And of course, when they said, hey, it's coming to the Switch, I decided to get it. By the way, it actually came to the Wii on Virtual Console, but only in Japan. And unfortunately, getting from the Japanese Virtual Console is a pain in the butt. So I didn't do that. So when the Switch announced that it was going to have this game, I said, I'm going to make a Japanese account. And then, hey, come to find out that they were bringing it to America the very next week, so I got to finally buy the game in America. And that makes me so happy to finally be able to support my favorite fighting game. And to have it, portable and on the Switch, that'll be nice, even if it isn't the best fighting controller. Anyway, I think it's about time we started getting these people set up. Not to mention, we've got some public service messages to run, if you don't mind. So please enjoy some diverse PSAs for your diverse mind. There might be a song or two where we try to get some people set up and get an interview going. And then we will have an interview about the fact that there is a freaking nuclear fire burning underground not exactly under your feet, but close enough to under your feet. And apparently it's spreading? That's what I'm hearing. So I'm going to talk to these ladies, and they're going to tell me things about our nuclear doom, and maybe there's a way to stop it. I don't know, but if anyone knows, it's probably them. They know better than me, that's for darn sure. So please enjoy some PSAs and music, and we'll be back here on 89.5 FM KCFE, the Wave Diverse Music for your diverse mind, and a diverse interview about our nuclear doom. So please stay tuned. It might be kind of important, to say the least. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome back to 89.5 FM KCFV, the Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and now we are talking about the flaming underground nuclear fire that is all horrible and bad, and we've got two wonderful ladies with us to discuss this. Oh, hang on a second. Sorry about that. Forgot to turn on your mics. Professionalism. So please introduce yourselves. Tell us about yourselves.
Hi, I'm Karen Nickel, and I live close to the Westlake Landfill. I am the co-founder of Just Moms STL and the founder of the Westlake Landfill Facebook group.
And I'm Dawn Chapman. I live a little less than 2 miles from the landfill, and I guess I'm kind of Karen Nickel's sidekick.
Well, all right. And how far is St. Louis Community College from this landfill?
It's about, I'd say, 6 to 10 miles. And unfortunately, y'all are covered under a catastrophic evacuation plan. Part of the specific plan at Westlake Landfill, it says with little to no warning, there could be a catastrophic event. And I would highly suggest you guys become informed and look that up.
Yeah, that might be a good thing to know about. So what do you know about this catastrophic evacuation plan?
So what we know is currently today there is a fire less than 700, between 600 and 700, depending on who you talk to, at the agency, feet away from radioactive Manhattan Project waste that has been sitting on the surface of this landfill for almost 44 years.
Oh, classic radioactive waste. Wonderful.
The oldest in the world.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, other than the, raw materials on super underground.
Right.
Whew, egad. So I hear you all actually have... tell us about what you do.
Well, our main focus is to educate others on the issue at hand here that you face living in St. Louis or even St. Charles County. And we have been successful over the past 4 years by educating elected officials so that they understand the magnitude and also understand how to read documents that come out so that they can counteract the information that the opposing people may have.
Right. A lot of what we do is making people aware, and if they're elected officials, it's actually going a step further in teaching them how to read the stuff. This is not heavy science. It doesn't take a genius to know that what I just described to you is really not a good situation. Yeah. But they have to be able to understand it, to be able to ask appropriate questions, and frankly, to have to beat back the corporations that are spewing nonsense about it.
Yeah, that was the thing that I found really intriguing, was you said that there was opposition to fixing our nuclear destruction. And I'm like, who would oppose this? I mean, I know that it's going to be a really tricky pain to try to remove this nuclear waste and find someplace else to put it, but at the same time, it's a thing that really needs to happen. So who would be opposing this? Can you say?
Well, the company who has to pay for the end result. There's a cheap solution, which is throwing dirt on top of it and leaving it there. But unfortunately, that's like taking a 2-liter soda bottle, poking holes in the bottom of it, and putting a cap on it. It really is pretty useless, and even the EPA agrees with that. And it isn't really that complicated to remove it. If anybody is familiar with North County, right around the corner here, they're removing radioactive waste from parks. This is done. There is a place where they take it to. St. Louis has been removing radioactive waste for 15 years, thousands of train cars full. And so it can be done, but, and it certainly at this point needs to. Again, it's just getting the people responsible to just decide once and for all that St. Louis deserves to have a safe place to raise its kids and to do the right thing.
Wow. Now that actually surprised me. You said that we have a radioactive waste removal group that's been removing radioactive waste from parks and things. So there's been a lot of radioactive waste around here.
Absolutely. We processed the first radioactive waste in St. Louis. There was enough radioactive waste from downtown Malincrot when they actually processed it for the bombs to fill Busch Stadium to the top. And a lot of it was sent out. Some of it went out to St. Charles to Weldon. Some of it sat out at the airport. And it was moved around like a nuclear hot potato. And eventually much of it was shipped out, and the rest of it was illegally dumped at the landfill. We've had a group in St. Louis, the Army Corps of Engineers FUSRAP group. It's a federal government from the Department of Energy group cleaning up waste for 15 years. You might see them off of McDonald Boulevard in Lindbergh out there in moon suits, digging it up, moving it out.
Whew. So, I'm actually starting to wonder how many nuclear landfills do we have in the area?
It's a question that we are asked a lot, and the answer is we really don't know. This waste was horribly mismanaged in St. Louis. Even the agency that's cleaning up the North County waste will tell you that. Boy, this stuff was really... Some people hauled it and they didn't even know. They were told it was clean fill dirt, so they put it in the back of their station wagons and were paid by the load. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happened, and so we don't know the answer to that, but what we do know is that, just like me telling you and the look on your face when I said that, we just came back from a classroom. People don't know that we have this radioactive legacy issue in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a secret here, and we're trying to, as I say St. Louis is trying to keep that secret attitude that was developed when this material was being processed. And at the time, the workers at Mallinckrodt, nobody knew what they were handling or doing with this waste. And for some unfortunate reason, the mentality to keep that secret has lingered on. And what we are finding is, while this has lingered on, it has also harmed many, many residents that have lived in North County year after year. And when you look at it like that, then, we often say that we are still casualties of the war because, we're still dealing with this waste and being exposed to it while they are cleaning it up in North County. Sometimes you have to think that it's not fast enough when you learn that it's in people's backyards and parks that your children are playing in.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward that to Westlake Landfill, it's still sitting there with absolutely no remediation in the near future, while politicians and agencies try to decide what they should do with it. People are sick. This becomes an issue involving politics and the relationship of it harming people and not putting the people first is really unfortunate and sad.
Whew, yeah, that's indeed. Now, I know one of the other nuclear issues we have in the area, because, oh, wonderful, we have a bunch of them, it seems, is Coldwater Creek. Do you know or do anything about Coldwater?
I actually grew up in Hazelwood, exposed to the radioactive waste that had been allowed to seep into the creek for many years. It had flooded into many homes and parks in our neighborhood. My parents bought a house and thought that they were doing so wonderful by moving into a neighborhood that had parks on either end of the street, many young children, and, just kind of living that American dream. And come to find out, in 2012, they learned that what actually happened was their children were being poisoned by a contaminated creek. And we know that because just a couple of years ago, it was released from the Army Corps of Engineers through their testing that there is radioactive waste that was found in the parks that we were playing at. And most recently, I think just a few months ago, it was released that it has now been found in people's backyards, and they will start the cleanup process on those homes. That's pretty sad that you live in a house that basically you feel as though you need to shelter in place because of what your backyard, what's in your backyard. Many people have become ill from this. We know this. There has been surveys and health studies done on this issue.
People you grew up with.
Right.
You.
People that I personally, and family members. A lot of my family lived in North County and still does. So the issue with what does it look like for Westlake people after what we know, what happens being exposed to low-level ionizing radiation for year after year? It's pretty scary. You know, I have a couple of autoimmune diseases, as well as some of the people that I grew up with on my street have the same issues. Some of them have passed away early on in their 40s of rare cancers and whatnot, MS and other chronic illnesses, infertility and things. And so we know what that looks like. And fortunately for North County, we do have the Army Corps of Engineers in there cleaning up this mess. While it may not be as quick as we would like it to be, we do have them in there doing their job. Unfortunately for the people of Westlake, we are under the jurisdiction of the Environmental Protection Agency, and they have failed this community in many ways.
That's astonishing that of all the things, the Environmental Protection Agency is what's screwing up the most. You'd think that they'd be the best people for the job, more than like the local people. Hey, it's the government and we're going to get all this taken care of, and they're not.
No, and you know, they can't, though. I mean, it's a Superfund site because we have awful chemicals that are burning there because of the fire as well. Not just the radiation that we have to worry about, unfortunately, but in Superfund, the responsible parties, the corporations, they use their own scientists. They do their own testing, and then they give the data to EPA. So I know, palm to the forehead. What could go wrong?
This before.
What could go wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we'll test it ourselves. It's fine. This happened way too often. I don't even know how that's allowed ever.
I know, right? What could go wrong when you do that, when you let that happen?
Right. And one of the things you were mentioning earlier before we went on was that, like, people outside of Missouri seem to know about this, but not Missouri itself.
Absolutely. It's still this radioactive waste. Even watching your face change when we talked to you about the park that Karen grew up in being cleaned, it is still one of the best kept secrets in St. Louis. And St. Louis just does not want to let go of its secrets ever. You talk to people in Illinois. We get people all the time. We have about almost 18,000 people on our Facebook page. My gosh, that's terrible what you guys are dealing with. I'm reading all these documents, and yet you go talk to somebody across the street, and they may have no clue. What radioactive waste? Where'd that come from? And it's like, you know, the Manhattan Project? You mean Nevada, right? No, I'm like, no, downtown St. Louis. So
yeah, like it's so hard to believe. I remember when I first heard about it, that was probably a good 2-3 years ago, and I was like, wait, really? We got waste from the Manhattan Project here?
Right.
And you were also mentioning how a lot of people seem to think that it's safe, because of course that's what they're told. And that's just a thing that makes me sad, because every time there has ever been a radioactive waste disaster, everyone is always told, oh, it's safe, it's fine, everywhere. Because I was just hearing about, like, the way Fukushima in Japan was being handled. It's like, no, it's safe. It's totally safe. Just send those fruit to market. It'll be fine.
Nothing happened in here. Look over there. It's okay here.
Yeah, we'll just section off this one area of the land and no one go there. Like, one of the things I remember them doing there was, like, taking dirt and putting it in bags. Oh, this dirt's radioactive. We'll put it in bags and we'll put it somewhere. Radiation is a waking nightmare of difficult to dispose of things, and now it's happening right here. Hey, nothing to see here. We've got a fire in a landfill that's this close to radioactive material, and it's just fine.
And, you know, it's funny because then you do, and then I say, well, you know, they'll say, well, the company says it's safe, and I'm like, really? Why is there an emergency evacuation plan saying a catastrophic event could happen at little to no warning? And then they look at you and go, what evacuation plan? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, hang on. We got to start all the way from the beginning here.
See, I thought they were going to be like, oh, well, that's just to be sure. But they don't even know about the evacuation plan.
There are so many people that don't know, and it's even the class that we went and spoke to, Professor Wilson's class today. Boy, we brought up a slide showing people and their eyes just got huge. And one of the girls was like, can we stop it? Like, you know, like,
right.
You know, because they don't know. And that's why what Karen and I do, we just want people to know. If people think it's a big deal, they think it's a big deal. If you have somebody that looks you in the face and says it's not a big deal that there's radioactive waste in a park being dug up, that's not a big deal, good on you. But I've yet to find anybody that feels that way.
Right, because you don't mess around with radioactive waste. It's the most terrible stuff on Earth, pretty much.
Yes, it is. And when you add a fire to that, where we live, we don't only have to deal with the radioactive waste issue. We also have to deal with the fire issue and the toxic stuff that comes off that fire, the odor. I don't know if you've ever been out in that area, but
I have.
Odor is absolutely horrific. And we have a subdivision that's less than a half a mile from this site that, if you know where I'm talking about, it's a Spanish Village subdivision, which they only have one entrance in and out of that subdivision, and they are so close to the site that, they get the odor all the time. But we also are very concerned about the issues of this fire, this underground fire becoming a surface fire at any moment, and what that looks like for the people living in the area, dealing with that odor and the cocktail of toxics that come out of that odor. We have children that have bloody noses and breathing problems, major headaches, and issues that we're dealing with our children on a day after day after basis, and no one can tell us what happens to our children or ourselves after being exposed to these toxic chemicals for 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and now going on 7 years. We are the test. We are the guinea pigs for this. No other place in this nation is there a landfill fire burning, sitting next to radioactive waste.
Nowhere in the world.
Nowhere. And if you talk to EPA, which we have talked to the former head of the Federal Administration of EPA, she would tell you that this is the most complex, dangerous site in the nation. And so you put people living a half a mile from this site, to me, not only are you irresponsible for the waste and the fire, you're irresponsible for the people that are living there, and that blood is on the company's hand,
Yeah. So, I know you're part of a group that's working to stop this. What are you guys doing? What's your plan?
Well,
do?
We're so glad that you guys had us here today. Any opportunity we get, we'll meet with people in their own living room, even if they want their grandparents to come over and learn about it. We never turn away from educating anybody. And so that's the number one thing we do. It's spring break for our kids. My husband took off work so we could be here, and honestly, it's worth it. It's worth it to get it across to people what's happening. But the other thing is just making sure people know there is a solution at this site. The fire, we would be here talking about the fire even if there wasn't radioactive waste, because that's a huge issue on its own. But there is a way to make this site less complicated than it is right now, and one way is to deal with this radioactive waste. And the only thing preventing that right now is bad politics and a corporate bully.
Well, how can we reach and join your group? You said you had a Facebook group?
We do. We have a couple of them. We have the Westlake Landfill Facebook group, and you can go in and ask to join that group, and we can approve you. We also have a Just Moms STL page where you can go in and just like the page, and you'll receive updates on articles and anything that's going on with documents or anything like that. We try to keep that posted. We also have a website. It is, you can get to it by going to justmomsstl.com or
.org.
Or .org. We have both of them. Or you can go to stlradwastelegacy.com. We have a community meeting. It meets every third Thursday of the month. It's held at John Calvin Presbyterian Church on Natural Bridge in Bridgeton. And you can reach us by westlakemoms@gmail.com.
Wow, thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about that I just didn't think of?
I would just say that this is a 70-year-old issue. We started the chapter on the Manhattan Project in St. Louis, and I think it's up to St. Louis to close the chapter on that book. We are responsible for beginning this, And if St. Louis cannot come together and finally close this chapter, then where is the hope for the hundreds of other sites across this nation that are contaminated by this waste as well? I mean, they're looking to us here. We have a critical site, and there's no reason why we can't accomplish this.
Yeah, critical is an understatement since we've got a fire next to it, too.
Right.
Which
nobody else has that.
Yeah, the only one in the world, and that's something to be proud of. Put it on a plaque, and that's a ticking time bomb right there.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is, and it's a horrible thing to be known for. And we cannot take back. I can't take away the contamination and what happened to Karen, but we can prevent it from happening to others. And
we do. We need your help. We need people to call Senator Blunt and Senator McCaskill.
Governor Greitens.
Call Governor Greitens and ask him what he's going to do to protect the people of St. Louis from a burning radioactive landfill. That's where the pressure lies. Coming out here to Florissant Valley Community College and speaking with our younger generation and students is very, the elected officials are scared of that because they're up and coming. This issue is not going away. This issue has been broke open. And we are doing everything that we can in our power to educate others so that others can make decisions on what's best for their families. And the truth of the matter is there's power in numbers and knowledge in education. So, I think that those two things would be a force to be reckoned with. And as these Facebook groups continue to grow, we have other groups that are splintering off and taking on other actions, such as direct actions. You can look for that coming up. Other groups that are educating on this issue. So it's not just Dawn and myself anymore. It's becoming a community of people to be reckoned with.
This fight's becoming a whole lot less lonely.
Thank freaking goodness.
Right?
Yeah, burning nuclear fire. Not good, and if you are driving through the area, you can even hear this broadcast. It's pretty much right next to you.
Right.
And, nobody wants that. Thank you very much for coming. That was Dawn Chapman and Karen Nickel from Just Moms STL. Check out their website, justmomsstl.com or justmomsstl.org. And be sure to check out their Facebook page to find out more about this horrible nuclear nightmare. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right. And now we are going to go back to the music for a moment. Actually, I think I need to fire off a station ID, and then we'll be back to the music, and then back to something a little less horrible, which would be GameBabble Live. We'll talk about video games and stuff. There is a burning nuclear fire right next to you right now, if you're listening to this. Anyway, this is 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check out that website and find out what you can do to try to prevent your horrible demise at the hand of nuclear waste. Stay tuned and thank you for listening. And when we get back, we'll get back to GameBabble Live. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. And that was an interview about how we're all doomed. How we are all freaking doomed. Please hit up their website. Hit up, where did it go? I moved it. The moms of STLCC. Apparently we're gonna be keeping that interview around for a while. I'm glad that wasn't even their name. Crap, where'd the paper go? Whatever, professionalism. Point is, yeah, look that up on the internet, and anyone who tells you, oh, the nuclear waste, it's safe, it's fine. The nuclear waste is never safe and fine. As I was telling them before, Fukushima, there's, taking bags of dirt, and they're taking dirt and they're putting it in bags, and they don't know what to do about that. And by the way, Fukushima, the radiation is kind of in the ocean and all over Hawaii, and it's washing up on our shores, and we're getting radioactive fish, and it's not good. Like, nuclear waste is the most irritating thing in the universe to deal with, because there's no solution. It is a thing we, shouldn't have done in the first place. It's like breaking reality or something when we split the atom. It's all bad. So, yeah, we've got some of that, right next door. It's bad, and anyone who tells you otherwise is an idiot. So be sure to look that up. Let's get back to a happier subject. Let's talk about Mass Effect Andromeda. I talked about the Switch and the little bit of time I spent with it. See, the reason I can't go any further into detail on the Switch is, number one, I was just testing it to make sure that mine worked, but I tried it. It's a really cute little system. By the way, the screen is about the same size as the Wii U gamepad. In general, the Switch is very similar in size to the Wii U gamepad. But it's a cute system. It'll be great when it gets more games, but as of right now, it's struggling. But I look forward to seeing what happens with it in the future. By the way, Nintendo had said they're kicking up productions and production of units. You might be able to catch them in stores as soon as next month. They're considering it a huge success, even though there's nothing on it. There are people who will buy gadgets just because they're gadgets, and Switch is pretty gadgety, so that's its biggest strength. So, Mass Effect Andromeda. This is the big game release that just came out. It's the beginning of, a new Mass Effect saga, because, of course, the Shepard saga is over, and it is currently the laughingstock of the internet. Why? Well, because it's a buggy, glitchy, goofy mess with horrible facial animations, and a lot of it I would just chalk up to, initially I want to be nice to it and say, well, it's an open world game. Because open world games are always buggy. They just are. It's the nature of an open world game, because the more freedom you give the player, the more stuff you can do, the more places you can go, the higher the chance of something going wrong. That's why I'm like, yeah, well, Skyrim gonna Skyrim, Saints Row gonna Saints Row. Yo, welcome to the row is what me and my friends say when it comes to, just how buggy these kinds of games can be. I was talking about it with Zelda Breath of the Wild. But Mass Effect Andromeda goes a little beyond that to just being awkwardly poorly made. Especially the NPC faces. Like, when you're talking to a random background character, their faces are stuck with their eyes just wide open, and their eyes are really small, and they speak in this awkward, robotic way, and it just doesn't work. And the most important thing, the reason why this stands out so much, is it looks worse than Mass Effect 1 when this happens. Now, the game in general, when it's that's the other annoying thing, is the inconsistent quality, because the game in general looks really good, looks better than the older Mass Effects, but then you get these parts, a lot of parts, where it looks way, way worse than Mass Effect 1. I know, one thing I kind of want to address, I don't like to bring up this kind of drama, but apparently there were actually a bunch of people who found someone who claimed to be the lead facial animator for Mass Effect Andromeda, and they gave her a bunch of crap, and people were all up in arms. You know what, I'm going to say, number one, we know who's responsible for this. It's Ralph, and he's an idiot, and screw him. But beyond that, I want to say one thing in defense of the lady who did the Mass Effect Andromeda facial animations, and yeah, she probably is the one who did them, in spite of BioWare saying she didn't. She kind of listed it on all her profiles, but in her defense, I think the scenes that actually have facial animation directors, I think those actually look really nice, because I've noticed one thing with Mass Effect Andromeda is that it has a bit more extreme and goofy and expressive faces during certain scenes, and I really liked those. I mean, they were goofy, but I was like, I kind of like this. I haven't really seen a video game pull off facial expressions like this. So, you see, what you have to remember when it comes to someone like that, okay, you're the lead facial animator. How many people worked on Mass Effect Andromeda? Hundreds, if not thousands of people worked on it. And lead facial animator, I don't think is exactly a top of the food chain kind of position. So this lady was probably sitting there and, like, the cutscene guys would say, hey, here's a cutscene, animate the faces for it, or something like that, and she'd do it. And then the NPCs with the terrible, terrible, terrible facial animations, she probably had nothing to do with because she wasn't directing any facial animations. Though they tend to get sort of automated facial animations, and that would be fine if the automated facial animations functioned right. On top of that, the game is just ridiculously buggy. I'm hearing good things about it, too. It's a very mixed bag, and that's what was going to happen. Remember, a show or two ago, I talked about how Naughty Dog isn't really Naughty Dog anymore? Well, same thing kind of applies to BioWare. I know that, like, the head writers for Mass Effect left, like, in the middle of Mass Effect 2. They had nothing to do with Mass Effect 3, let alone Mass Effect Andromeda. Very little of the original BioWare team is there. Most of them left and joined Blizzard, and I'm hearing what few are left are sort of clinging to their top-tier jobs, and of course there's a lot of drama. But on top of the drama, there's the fact that this wasn't really made by BioWare Prime. See, there's two different BioWares. BioWare Edmonton and BioWare Montreal. BioWare Edmonton is the central BioWare. They're the people who actually made Mass Effect. BioWare Montreal is a new studio they opened up to make Mass Effect DLC. And those are the people who made Mass Effect Andromeda. The grand majority of the people there had never actually made a full game. They just made DLC for Mass Effect. And now they've made Mass Effect Andromeda. Great, that was a good plan, EA. You know what you're doing. You're top of your game there, EA. Good idea. So yes, everyone is pointing and laughing at Mass Effect Andromeda. And I personally am avoiding it for personal reasons. It's a shame. Like, there are ways they could have handled it where I would have been cool with it. Like, I really wish they would have talked more about Mass Effect Andromeda, because it kind of came out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere. We knew it was coming, but we had nothing on it for so long, and then it's like, oh, hey, here it is. Like, I would have liked to actually hear people say so. Someone actually coming out and saying, well, the Shepard saga is over, and we have a lot of new talent, so we're taking Mass Effect in a different direction, and it's going to be a little more comedic, and we're going to do different things. We know the fans will be disappointed, but we're like that it's not classic Mass Effect, but we really can't make classic Mass Effect, but we have this wonderful, rich universe, and we hope that everyone finds something to enjoy. That, I should be in PR. Someone hire me. Because, someone does that, I would have been like, oh yeah, I like the cut of these people's jib. But no, it was like, complete silence. Oh, hey, there's Mass... when I say complete silence, it's like, here's a picture of a ship. There's an alien. It's Mass Effect. Yep, Mass Effect Andromeda. Here's a logo. And then, like, there it is. Now it's here. Totally AAA. Oh, wait, everyone's face is wrong. I highly implore you all to go on YouTube, look up some Mass Effect Andromeda glitches. Some of them are amazing. There's this one where people were just T-posing everywhere, which T-posing is like one of the default model poses where they're just standing, where like a character is just standing there with their arms out perfectly stiff. And whenever you see that happen in a video game, that is a huge, huge bug. It means that the model has been loaded in, but like its animation didn't load. And there is some wacky hijinks with that. So that's what's going on with Mass Effect Andromeda. Whew. You know what? While we're talking about that, talking about some games with some legacies, they finally revealed the name of the next big Sonic the Hedgehog game. A little bit of a shift, but from Mass Effect to Sonic. But next big Sonic the Hedgehog game. It is called Sonic Forces. And I know that there's a bunch of people who are like, ugh, why do we care? They should stop making Sonic games because they're all terrible. And I really hate that attitude. Mostly because Sonic Colors and Generations were really, really good. Not just, like, good for a Sonic game, they were, like, the best games on their respective consoles. Some of the best. They're in the top 10. Like, Sonic Colors is one of the top 10 best games on Wii, hands down. It is one of the most gorgeous games on Wii. It played great. That was the game where they really got the formula right and made a really good game. It wasn't perfect, but it was really good. And Sonic Generations, yeah, the end boss was terrible, as were a few of the optional side things you can do. Aside from that, that game was mind-blowing, and that's easily, I'd consider it one of the top 10 best games on PS3 and 360. So those were really good games. So what happened after that? Well, there was Sonic Lost Worlds, which was a Wii U exclusive that no one played. And a lot of people just assume it was bad because it sold poorly, and Sonic Boom came after it. It's not. It's mediocre. In fact, it's the only Sonic game anyone would ever describe as mediocre. It's an incredibly well-made game, but it's slow and overcomplicated and never gels together right. Like, seriously, every level of Sonic Lost World felt like a completely different game. It never really solidified. It wasn't bad, but it was like, it's just a mess, but like a really well-made mess. It was weird. And then there was Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, which is unquestionably the worst Sonic game. Not just the worst Sonic game ever made, yes, but worse than Sonic 06. But the worst video game I've ever played in my life. Because Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric invented hyperboredom. Which is, like, basically, when I played Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, I rented it from Family Video. I was not paying money for that. But when I rented it from Family Video, I entered this weird state where I was actually more bored playing the game than I would be staring at a blank screen. Staring at a wall is less boring than Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. It's a weird thing. I could probably rant for like an hour about how terrible it is. But I won't. Point is, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric was abysmal, and of course that got everyone going, oh, Sonic games are all terrible again. But Sonic Forces is like, when you really look at it, it's pretty, like, I wouldn't even call Sonic Lost World a stumbling point, and the game before that, Sonic Generations, was amazing, and Sonic Forces is pretty much Sonic Generations 2. That's the general idea behind it. That's where they're going with it. It's looking exactly like that. Like, I hear they're going to have modern and classic Sonic in it again. The part where you're supposed to worry is that they said there's going to be a third gameplay style. And that's where the game's going to screw up. I'm calling it now. 1/3 of Sonic Forces is going to be terrible. But if you've ever played the Sonic Generations, like the modern and the classic stages, and are so good that I'll wade through a terrible third play style. And we don't know it's terrible yet. They haven't shown it yet. But then anyone familiar with the joke about the Sonic cycle would say, oh, they haven't shown it yet, then that's the part where they screwed up. But as bad, no matter what happens with that, there's always Sonic Mania. And I'm kind of annoyed that people are blowing off Sonic Forces in favor of Sonic Mania this hard, but I kind of understand too. If you're unfamiliar, Sonic Mania is coming out a bit sooner, and it is a classic 2D Sonic made by Christian Whitehead. Who's Christian Whitehead? Well, you ever play that Xbox 360, PS3, iPad version of Sonic CD? He's the guy who made that. That is not emulation. He rebuilt that entire game from scratch, so that way it could be widescreen, it could have the dual audio, it could run with, like, no load times and no slowdown issues, basically creating the best version of Sonic CD possible. And that meant he had to learn how retro Sonic physics work and recreate them accurately. And he did that. So I have no problem saying Christian Whitehead knows more about how Sonic the Hedgehog works than Sega does. And he got Sega to let him make a new classic-style 2D Sonic game that should play exactly like Sonic and Knuckles, except modern, with fancier animation and sprites and flashy things and no slowdown and big wide screens and stuff. So yeah, there's plenty of reason to be excited about that if you're a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. And yeah, to anyone wondering, because I know Sonic fandom has a bad reputation. Of course I know that. I actually wrote an article called Sonic and the Worst Fandom Ever, which you might have read. I say that because egad does that thing get hits. I've studied this phenomenon thoroughly, but to anyone wondering why does this series keep selling, the answer is because, number one, there's nothing else like it. Even at its worst, with the exception of the abysmal Sonic Boom, even at its worst, there's nothing else quite like a Sonic game. Except Freedom Planet, which is phenomenal. But other than, like, Freedom Planet, there is no, like, good, there's no good alternative to Sonic. Only a Sonic game feels like a Sonic game. That's just how it is. And number two, the games have never stagnated. For better or for worse, every single one of them has tried something new, something different, something fresh. They've always tried to evolve the formula. They've always tried to move forward. They always tried to fix their flaws, and then they usually introduce new flaws because of the new mechanics. But even when the series is bad, Sonic fans still go to it because it's a unpredictably moving forward all the time, and that's why the games, even when they're wonky, they still sell. So that should hopefully clarify that. Anyway, gonna take a quick break. Actually, we're not going back to the music. Well, maybe we're going back to a song. Yes, we're going back to a song. And then when we get back, let's see, when we get back, I will tell you about the amazingness that is Chaos Code. That seems like a good place to go, so please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Please enjoy some diverse music and stay tuned. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. This is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m., except last Wednesday. And the fact that I wasn't on last Wednesday, because, spring break, and it was not a fun spring break for me, but since I wasn't here, I did not get to tell you all about Chaos Code. I've talked about it on the show a few times, and it finally had its U.S. release last week, but good news, U.S. release is both PS4 and Steam, so if you get interested in this game, it's on both of them. Now, what is Chaos Code? Well, Chaos Code is a 2D anime-style fighting game from about 10 people in Taiwan. You see, the group is called FK Digital, and they used to actually be based in Australia, where they made a game called Super Cosplay Wars Ultra, which was a lot like Pocket Fighter, if you've ever played that game, the one with the super deformed Street Fighter characters that, change outfits every time they punch you. Yeah, they did that, but with different random cosplayers cosplaying different anime characters. And that was made in 2D Fighter Maker, and you can still find it for free online. It's kind of amusing, but the art in it is super bad. But they decided they wanted to become a, real, legit video game company. So, they tried to make a full-fledged fighting game of their own, with its own engine that they could put into arcades. Apparently, it actually started as, a free-to-play online game, but there apparently wasn't a lot of demand for free-to-play online fighting games. They retooled it to actually make an arcade version, and in the middle of all this, they realized that they were having a lot of trouble getting consistent sprite work done in Australia, so they moved back to Taiwan, because the three brothers that are the head of the company were they're from Taiwan in the first place. They go back to Taiwan. They get a company of about 10 people together, and they work on this game while they make, like, some downloadable app games. They call themselves FK Digital. They make this game. It took them, like, I think they said 7 years of development, since it was a small group of people just poking away at this. They released it in Japanese arcades. I believe in 2013 was the first version of Chaos Code. And it was a little rough, but it was also pretty good. It did get a following, and it eventually, I think in 2014? I think the game came out in 2011 and then had a home port in 2013. I don't know, it's hard to get a good read on the times. But point is, game out in Japanese arcades from Taiwan, and then was released onto the Japanese and Hong Kong PlayStation Network for $12, a year or two later, and eventually came to America on PlayStation 3. Now, this game, they were like, okay, we're gonna, everyone was like, does it have online play? And they said, no, we'll patch it in later. They never pulled that off, but they did update the game a lot. Well, after years of them updating the game and trying to put in patches, like in the arcades, they released a new version called Chaos Code New Sign of Catastrophe, which adds in 2 new characters and new moves and upgrades the game and stuff. And they wanted to try to just patch that into the existing Chaos Code, but the PlayStation 4 came out, and eventually they just threw their hands up in the air and were like, okay, this is just going to be a new port. So now, Chaos Code New Sign of Catastrophe came out in Japan and Hong Kong back in October, and the Hong Kong version was completely in English, and it has not been changed for the US release. In fact, it's compatible with the US release. Game finally gets its US release, and it takes them 4 months to do absolutely nothing except get Sony to put it on the PlayStation Network. But it's finally freaking here, and oh egad, this game is so good. See, you're gonna look at it. You're gonna look at Chaos Code, and you're going to say, wow, this looks like a generic 2D anime fighting game. It seems very boring and generic. Until you actually spend time with it and realize that all of the characters are super goofy. Except for Vayne, because he's an edgelord. But, like, the main character, Hikaru, he's kung fu fighting guy gonna save the world. Yeah! Number 1, he is not like Ryu at all. He does not do the fireball Shoryuken hurricane kick. No. This guy plays completely differently, has a very interesting, it's actually a really fun, playstyle, and he is a massive anime nerd. Like, big time. In fact, there's a secret version of him where he comes out in battle, and you know how in Street Fighter, Ryu comes out and he's got this knapsack slung over his shoulder, and he throws it to the ground when the match starts? Well, if you're playing the secret version of Hikaru, which has a completely different moveset, he comes out with an anime body pillow slung over his shoulder, and he flings it to the ground. And then you have, like, this gothic Lolita maid girl, and that's kind of the main girl, and it's like, whatever. And then you find out she's a robot that trips on her rocket-powered platform shoes and has a laser sword and secret missiles with bows on them, and can summon an army of super deformed versions of herself, which is like my favorite move in the game, because she summons like a ring of 6 of them, and each one has a goofy facial expression, and after you summon them, you press both kicks simultaneously to launch them, and they stay out for a while, so you can just annoy your opponent like crazy by shooting these drones out sporadically, and it's great. And there's an evil version of her that has a completely different sprite, Celia 2 Kai, who is still a gothic Lolita robot, except she has, like, black eyes with red irises and clawed hands, and she's completely psychotic, and she can pop chainsaws out of her legs and throw giant blades at you and slashes at you, and it's just completely nuts. And then you get, like, the really weird characters, like Bravo. Bravo Pepperoncini is the grappler of the game, and he's a chef. He is a chef that will beat you with sausage nunchucks. He has a move where he slams the ground and a table pops up from under you. His grapples include frying you in a wok. His air throw is him wrapping you up in a giant pot sticker dumpling and body slamming you. And one of his super moves is that he has a table full of McDonald's fast food and he table flips it at you. It is absolutely amazing. And then you have, like, Catherine the Magical Cross player. And then there's Cthulhu, who's my main, which is actually the daughter of Cthulhu, which that concept apparently did not originate from Chaos Code. What did originate from Chaos Code is the fact that she's a magical girl with tentacle hair. Okay, that's who I main, though, because she is freaking amazing. Rui's a more standard schoolgirl. We've got a cyborg ninja lady. We've got the edgelord. We've got the guy who speaks English and fights with guns. It's a pretty darn good roster, and they're all super easy to play except the two new characters, Ray and Lupinus. They're at the bottom of the character select screen, and those two are a pain in the butt to play because they're the advanced characters. See, Chaos Code was built with fun in mind, first and foremost. They didn't really care about balance. So they were like, we just want to make a game that's easy to play and fun. And as such, every single character is super versatile. Like, whether they're a rushdown character, a projectile character, or a grappler, they all have options for rushdown, grappling, and range. Like, I mentioned Bravo, he's the grappler, except he has a move where he can make a table pop up from under you. So if someone's spamming fireballs at you, you could just make a table pop up under them, knock them down, get in close, and start grappling them. And you could actually pull off some pretty decent rushdown combos just beating them with your sausage chucks. Meanwhile, Cthulhu is supposed to be a ranged character, but there's still some nasty rushdown stuff that I play her as a rushdown character. You know? I get them caught in the rings of Papilloi, and then I rush in while they're getting hit and start a combo, usually go into an uppercut, maybe canceling the Flames of the Fire Vampires. It's pretty ridiculous. Not to mention her new move in this game, Game of Shoggoth. If it inexplicably bounces off the ground, and it's nuts. And yes, those are her move names. By the way, her level 3 super is called the Call of Great Father. So there you go. And, yeah, so everyone has options except for Ray and Lupinus. They're the advanced characters. Ray is the slowest character in the game, and he is not a grappler. He just punches you really, really hard. He can give himself hits of super armor. He has a super complex chain combo system, punch meter, and the whole concept is that he just walks in and slams you off of walls. He has a lot of wall bounce, ground bounce type of moves where, yeah, he ricochets you off walls. Lupinus is kind of trying to be the Cammy character of the game, and she is a acrobatic grappler with an extendable bionic arm. So she can, like, bounce off walls, and she's super fast, but she's a grappler, which is really awkward. And yeah, she could be in midair and use her arm to grab you off the ground, snatch you up into the air, and then from there do air throws. And when you see a good Lupinus in action, it is amazing, but I can't play her at all. Literally, the entire rest of the cast, though, is super easy to play. And the game was originally made right as the 4x3 aspect ratio was being phased out. So, it's still in 4x3 aspect ratio. Now, the remaining area, you can, like, get it to expand the view of the stage, but you still get pushed back by the 4x3. But the default is better. Because by default, they put borders on the screen that show your character's entire move list with, player 1 on the left side, player 2 on the right side. And it's fantastic. Because, let's be honest, this isn't a fighting game from Capcom. It's a fighting game from a little Taiwanese company called FK Digital. No one's going to spend time learning this game. No one's going to spend all that time in training mode. the way a lot of people are going to be introduced to this is they have that one friend who buys all the fighting games, and they're going to be like, you gotta check out this new fighting game that just came out, and they'll just hop right into versus mode, and, oh hey, here's my entire move list on the side of the screen. I know how to play my character to a relative degree. And instantly they're having fun, and the move list is so big, and you can make it bigger because of its unique system of, like, picking extra moves, and it's really, really nice. And the music, that game has some of the best fighting game music I've heard since Guilty Gear Isuka. Like, BlazBlue has nice fighting game music, but nothing that I'm like, this is legit good. Yo, there hasn't been anything where I'm like, this music stands out and I will remember it. But Chaos Code knocks it out of the park there. On top of that, it does have online play. Arc Systems Works did the publishing, and they just gave them BlazBlue's netcode. It is identical to the BlazBlue netcode because it has that weird, like... Okay, when you're playing BlazBlue and it's using its weird netcode, at the start of a match, there is really, really horrible lag when everyone's doing their character intros, and then it runs great. Chaos Code does the exact same thing. That is the only netcode I've ever seen do that, and for the record, BlazBlue's netcode is way better than Guilty Gear Xrds. I don't know why. And it plays, it works. Like, I've fought against people in China and Japan, and it has worked out super fine, relatively fine. I've had some lag issues, but it was still pretty playable. And now that we have US players, it should work pretty fine as long as they're not being stupid and, like, clogging up their internet. So the netcode's really good. It does actually have custom colors, which is something we haven't seen in eons in a game. So, what is wrong with Chaos Code? Because I'm just sitting here raving about how great this game is, and I'm not gonna lie, favorite game of the last console generation. I mentioned that the previous version of it was on PS3, and initially, when I first played it, I said, it's just another anime fighter, plays nice. But I just kept being drawn back to it by the crazy characters and the fantastic music and how easy it was to play. Like, the inputs are super forgiving, combos are almost comically easy to do. The game just plays like a dream. So what is wrong with the game? And the answer is it's made by 10 people in Taiwan. What I mean by that is that the sprites aren't super amazing. They look actually pretty darn good a lot of the time, especially since they've redone a ton of them. I remember when the game came out, Rui and Celia had completely different standing animations. They've gone back and changed the animations that, like, looked really bad on a lot of the characters, and it looks a lot better, a lot more consistent. The animation isn't super smooth, but the frames that they chose make it look like it animates well. They've got some good smudging in there and stuff. It looks really nice. So, like, in terms of what frames they chose for animation. However, it is not as polished as BlazBlue. It is not as polished as Skullgirls. It is a $20 downloadable, darn near indie fighting game. It should be compared closer to Yatagarasu, and Yatagarasu, of course, looks better, but is a lower resolution. The resolution on it is a bit weird. It's higher than your standard standard retro 2D fighter, but not, like, super high res. Background characters, like, there's a ton of background characters. They tend to have, like, maybe 3 frames of animation. And honestly, there's a bit of sprite inconsistency. The token sexy lady, which is, her name's Hermes, she looks like she's a little bit too small. Like, her head and her body just seem a little bit shorter than everyone else's proportions. At the same time, Celia 2 Kai, her head seems a little bit too big, but her body seems too short. You know, there's just these little tiny bits where you look, and then, Hermes' run animation is freaking terrible, and I've been complaining about that run animation for years. I don't even pick run anymore with her. I just dash with her. because it just looks so bad. But it doesn't... There's just little parts here and there where you're like, it doesn't look great. Oh yeah, and then there's the end boss, Kudlak Sin. The end boss looks like a dumpster fire. Not quite a radioactive dumpster fire, a mere few miles from this station, but a dumpster fire nonetheless. Just the way, it's very clear they threw him together really quickly, and they haven't fixed his sprite, which is a shame, because now that he's been balanced to be a normal character, a lot of people main him, and he just looks bad. There's just little parts, like, I don't think Cathilla's tentacle hair moves enough, like... And there's parts where I see it move, and it's like, wait, only, like, these two sections of the hair moved, and the rest stayed perfectly still? It doesn't look bad, but it lacks the polish of, like, a more professional, big-budget fighting game. Also, the win quotes are terrible. As crazy as the characters are, as wacky as the endings can be, as much personality as the game has, the win quotes are all awful. Like, they're all generic and bland, and this wouldn't be so bad except the versus screen inexplicably goes on too long, so you wind up spending more time than you'd like to looking at these terrible win quotes that are utterly devoid of personality. Like, they almost sap personality from the otherwise... bursting with personality characters we have. Even still, I really, really, really like Chaos Code. I think it's a solid fighter. I don't think I'm allowed to tell you... I'm not allowed to tell you, oh, you, like, need this game. But I am allowed to tell you that I, personally, on a very personal level, love it. And since I will apparently be around this weekend, there is going to be an online tournament on Friday in the Chaos Code group on PlayStation 4. And I'm going to be there. I don't yet have the PC release. I will get the PC release just because I love this game so much. I want to be ready to fight anyone at any time. And one more thing, if you do pick it up and you're poking around, look out for Tenryo the Light. He is the former community manager for Chaos Code, and he has thousands of wins. He's not the best Chaos Code player, but he's really, really good, and don't run away. Just take the challenge, because you need to find out what high-level Chaos Code looks like, and he will show you. Anyway, I need to take a break. Kind of a forced break. Gotta take a break. We will be back, and I will talk about probably a gigantic pile of random news. But until then, enjoy a break, enjoy some music. Thank you for listening to 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. This is GameBabble Live. See you in a couple minutes. Hello and welcome to 89.5 FM KCFE, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and this is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m., except for last Wednesday. And, yeah, we are coming back, and I've got a pile of news for you. Also, I should probably, I was thinking about how much I love Chaos Code and how enthusiastic I might have been. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, wait a second, I have yet to have anyone not like Chaos Code. Like, when I was streaming about 2 nights ago with a friend of mine, and he outright thanked me for introducing him to Chaos Code. So I'm pretty confident in that. Anyway, gigantic pile of news. First of all, new Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth game coming. It is a prequel. It will be in the US in 2018. So, Digimon fans, congratulations. You have proven to Namco Bandai that the West is profitable for Digimon. They should keep making Digimon games. I'm really hoping that we get an alternating setup. Like first we get a Digimon Story, and then a Digimon World, and then a Digimon Story. The difference being the Digimon Story games are more traditional turn-based RPGs, whereas Digimon World are more virtual pet caretaking games. I would be so cool with them just alternating. Anyway, new Cyber Sleuth game. It looks like it only has, like, it looks like it's taking the content of the previous one and building off of it. It's a prequel. Thus far, it looks like it only has one playable character, like, in terms of the humans, and the general plot is that you're this guy who is falsely accused of a crime, and you need to clear your name, even if that means teaming up with hackers to solve the crime, and it's supposed to be a prequel to the previous Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth game. Could be fun, because the previous one was super fun. I mentioned earlier, Nintendo is fixing busted Nintendo Switch controllers. If you have a left Joy-Con that is not as responsive as it should be, send it back to Nintendo, and they'll shove some conductive foam in it for you. Also, new Nintendo Switch controllers do not have this issue. Next up, King of Fighters 14 has revealed that they're going to be releasing a bunch of DLC characters, 2 of which have been shown so far. Whip and Yamazaki. Now, so a friend of mine pointed out that the picture, like, it looks like it's only 3 characters, but if you look closely, there's 2 more pairs of legs left, so there's 4 characters, and it is looking like the next 2 characters might be Shingo and Vanessa. There is a screenshot of Vanessa floating around the internet, but we don't know if it's just a really good Photoshop or if the next character is Vanessa. Tons of people hoping for that one, because Vanessa is a really well-liked character. Really, the only problem with Vanessa is the fact that she plays identical to Rick Strode, and Rick Strode is an equally beloved character. They're both boxers. They both have a similar playstyle. I'd like to have both of them in the game, honestly. But people love Vanessa, and so anyone paying attention to KOF will be happy about that. Speaking of King of Fighters, King of Fighters Destiny is going to be a CG animated series that is going to start airing this summer. It will probably be terrible. I am excited. Like, this was a thing they said they wanted to do. If you haven't been following, SNK, after making King of Fighters 13, kind of bankrupted themselves. They got bought out by a Chinese company, but this Chinese company is super excited to have SNK on board, because their games are actually kind of popular in China, and they're like, we're going all in. We are going to push this super hard. They've been getting back old team members who left SNK. They got SNK's logo back. Like, their new logo is the old SNK logo, and they have a jingle, and it's the old Neo Geo Startup Noise remixed. Like, half of the old Neo Geo Startup Noise remixed is part of their new logo. It's great. And they said, yeah, we want to do a TV series, we want to do comics, we want to do movies. Apparently SNK is working on another game, which is probably either Metal Slug or Samurai Showdown, and they're pushing the new KOF, putting new content in, and, of course, it's going to be a CG animated series. Now, the reason I say it's probably going to be terrible is because it's trying to put story to a fighting game. And I hope that it is all canon and accurate, because that'll only make it worse. Like, I love stupid fighting game stories. Like, I could talk for days about Dead or Alive 5's ridiculous movie feature-length, super flashy story mode that it had. And people are like, oh, that story mode was so bad. I loved it. Same thing with Street Fighter 5. Like, people saw Street Fighter 5 story mode, and they're like, oh, this story mode is so bad. And I'm like, I love it. So, if I get basically King of Fighters story mode CG, the series, oh, I will watch every single episode and love every second of it. I really hope that's what we get. It'd be great. It'd be the best. Because King of Fighters has a lot of stupid in it. Back to something more normal. Orisa is the new character for Overwatch, and she is now in all versions of Overwatch. She's some kind of weird centaur bot tank thing. Also, if you're familiar with obscure DS RPGs, Radiant Historia is getting a remake on 3DS. Yay! Radiant Historia is freaking awesome. Also, just found out Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap. It is getting a remake. I've heard about this for a while. Remake is due April 18th, and they are adding in Wonder Girl. They are like, yo, what? let's just throw a female character in there. Why not? You can choose between them. There's a trailer up on Sony's official channel. It looks gorgeous. I never played Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap, but I'm kind of interested after looking at it now. Like, the game is... I think this thing is crowdfunded or something? There was a bunch of crazy things going on with this. Let's see. Lizard Cube, and it's being published by .mu. That's adorable. Oh, hey, supposedly it'll be on the Switch. That's nice. Oh, yeah, and they were working with the original game designer. And yeah, it's a really nice-looking remake. And now, for the... Let's see, is this the biggest news? That's the biggest news. Okay, it's the thing I'm going to ramble about for a bit. So, who here still plays Dead or Alive 5? I know I do, but I know I'm also weird. I bring this up because, guess what? It's time for the annual Dead or Alive 5 Halloween Costume Contest. It's open now. Entries are due by May 7th. They said you can make as many costumes for as many characters as you want. Go wild. It'll be great. And you're probably saying, Halloween costume? A Halloween costume contest? It's March. Why are we doing a Halloween costume contest? If you're saying that, then you're not familiar with these. You see, Dead or Alive 5 is pretty much supported entirely by costume DLC. They release new outfits for characters literally every month, and they have been since vanilla DOA 5, and your DLC actually carries over between versions. They didn't do it monthly in the past, but now they do it monthly. There's a free-to-play version on PSN, and there are literally thousands of costumes now, and that's the main way it makes money, because, of course, the fighting game community completely stubs the game, even though it's actually really good, and they've fixed a lot of the problems Dead or Alive has had in the past. And after they... what was it? I know for a while, like, they were releasing new costumes, and people kept saying, oh, why doesn't Team Ninja release cool costumes? So they did a costume design contest, and those costumes wound up being the new costumes for Dead or Alive 5 last round that are packed in with the game. Now, I know you're thinking that it was probably all just a bunch of ridiculously skimpy outfits, and you were actually wrong, believe it or not. The winner of the first Dead or Alive 5 costume contest was actually punk rocker Elliot in a kilt, which was designed by a dude. And then the second place winner was a super ornate but skimpy outfit for Kasumi, which was designed by a woman. Sometimes you need to leave your expectations at the door. Video games can be pretty unpredictable. They are not as paint by numbers as people like to think they are. But immediately after they did their first costume design contest, Team Ninja realized, wait, we don't know what we're doing for next Halloween. Because they only did, like, 1 or 2 Halloween costume sets themselves, and then they were like, we don't know what we're going to do? Because they were out of ideas. They were like, hey, another costume design contest. Everyone have fun. And ever since then, every year, usually around this time, in March, due in May, they do the costume design contest for Halloween. And people draw up their costume designs, they send them in, like, some years they let you vote on them, some years they just pick the best ones, and then they just make them into costumes. And one year, they actually did a bonus costume set, like, in the middle of spring, they just released more, like, the designer's choice, which was a bunch of really good Halloween costumes that just didn't make the initial cut. So you never know what's going to happen with these costumes, but they certainly give Team Ninja an idea of what to go with. And I openly admit that every single time they have run this contest, I have submitted a genie outfit for Lisa every single time. And I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to update it because I realized that all of my annotations are actually for Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate and not last round. It's like, I should probably update this submission file. Because eventually I have to succeed. They've been releasing the exact same outfit I designed for all the other characters except for Lisa. Like, seriously, No one else was doing the genie costume until I submitted the Lisa one to the first costume contest. And then everyone just started copying me. And I'm just sitting here like, but my costume's still not in. And honestly, you all have been picking really lame Lisa costumes. So vote for my costume if they give a vote. Dang it. Anyway, I'm sorry. I like Dead or Alive 5. I'm really impressed with the way they fixed so many of the series' problems. And then in Ultimate, they fixed a lot of the game's problems. It just, everything wound up getting a whole lot better. Anyway, okay. I think that about covers any major things. You know what, though? I should probably tell you about the anime in theaters again, because, again, Your Name, April 7th, and then the Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress recap films. It's going to be a double feature. Will be April 26th. That's a one-night event. Your Name will probably be in theaters a couple days, but Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress is just April 26th. Actually, let me see something. Your Name showtimes. I should look that up. Do we have any showtimes yet? I guess not. You really should have some of those. Nah, whatever. Anyway, that does it for this kind of news, and we are actually starting to run out of time. See, I covered all that. I guess we're going to take a quick break, and then I'll tell you all about the complete absurdity that is Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash, as best I can within FCC regulations. Anyway, please enjoy the music, the diverse music for your diverse mind, and we will be right back. Thank you so much for listening. This is Gel, GameBabble Live, 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Thank you for listening, and please stay tuned. Apparently, I'm awesome music now. Hello and welcome back to GameBabble Live. I'm your host, Gel, here on 89.5 The Wave. KCFV, diverse music for your diverse mind. This is GameBabble Live, our video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. And wow, those were some depressing PSAs. This is an awkward transition. I'm sorry. Let's talk about something more lighthearted, because we're running out of time, and I finally got my hands on Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. Now, what is Senran Kagura? Well, it is a game about warring ninja schools. That is actually what it's about. A series started on 3DS, and the best way to describe the series is this is a franchise that looked at Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball and said, challenge accepted. It takes that kind of content and cranks it up to 12. Not 11, 12. This stuff is kind of incredibly racy, but also somewhat lighthearted. I mean, with the exception of the plot of the first game. The first game was, they didn't expect it to become a series, so the first game was kind of a throwaway, and the plot was, like, weirdly serious, and you weren't sure if anyone was going to make it out of there, and it actually kind of made me cry a couple times when I was playing as the villains. That probably sounds really weird, but one of the concepts of this series, if I make it into the deep lore, because there is deep lore, one of the concepts of the series is that you have the good ninjas and the evil ninjas, and the good ninjas, they tend to come from prestigious ninja families. They have tons of background checks, and only the select elite can become good ninjas. And if you screw up, you're completely barred from ever becoming a good ninja. The evil ninjas, however, they will accept anyone. There is no barrier for entry. There's just a barrier for exit, because once you get into the evil ninja clan, you don't get out. You're there for good. You stay. So anyone who tries to escape from the evil ninja clan, they generally tend to get murdered. And the people who tend to go into the evil ninja clan, they usually are like really, really broken people that are down on their luck. Like, to the point where they just have no hope. So when I was way back in the first game, when I was playing as the evil ninjas, there were some harsh moments. It was really weird. The series since then has gotten a lot more lighthearted because now we know that none of these characters are ever going to die. And even if they did, they'd probably come back through the Magic Beach because the game Senran Kagura Estival Versus was literally about a beach between life and death. And so, like, everyone lost someone in their family in this game, and they got to, like, meet them one more time during this one festival where life and death, like, meet at this one crazy interdimensional beach. It was odd. Keep in mind, this is a game that is very extreme beach volleyball-ish, this, in terms of content. And so a lot of people think that these games are going to be complete garbage. Then they actually see them in action. That's the thing that surprises them, because when this company, Tamsoft, thinks about that kind of stuff, they say, you know what this needs? High-flying, flashy air combos. The general way I'd describe the majority of the series is a combination of Dynasty Warriors and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You have flashy, crazy superpowers, huge explosions, ridiculous air combos. And yeah, it's mashy. It is very, very button mashy. But it does a good job. Like, the attacks tend to be so flashy and over the top that it actually feels pretty good. What's even weirder, though, is the split. Because the core series, which there's only 2 games in the core series, Senran Kagura Burst and Senran Kagura 2, those are on 3DS. And they're actually like side-scrolling beat-em-up style. But then you have the PS4 and Vita games like Shinobi vs. Estival vs. And those tend to be like 3D back view, more traditional style. Anyway, Peach Beach Splash, though, is a spin-off. It is a squirt gun fighting spin-off. This is because of a strange trend that I actually think might be the fault of Splatoon. See, Splatoon's a huge hit in Japan, and third-person shooters generally aren't. And personally, I wouldn't say Splatoon is a third-person shooter. I'd say it's Pac-Man, and we could talk for hours about how Splatoon is Pac-Man, but really I should just make a video on my YouTube channel explaining it with proper visual explanations. But still, Japan generally hasn't played third-person shooters, and that's because they've had this stigma, because early on, Japanese gamers had complained about the camera and them moving around too fast and being like, oh, this is making us sick, and that's why first and third-person shooters never really took off in Japan. But after Splatoon, everyone's suddenly on board, the games are doing better. I hear Sniper Elite 4 actually sold well in Japan now. And so, the 2 big fan service game series, One-Chanbara and Senran Kagura, have both made third-person shooter spin-offs. The One-Chanbara series, which, yes, is, one of its subtitles is, Bikini Zombie Slayers. Its spin-off game is called, Schoolgirl Zombie Hunters. That's right. Schoolgirl Zombie Hunters has, it seems to be kind of squad-based and interesting in a variety of odd ways. I don't want to get into that game's mechanics. And then Senran Kagura made Peach Beach Splash, which is a more arena tournament style thing. The way it's set up, you got all the ninja schools there. Each one has 5 people. It's generally 5-on-5 third-person shooter matches. Okay, well, what makes this different? Well, Japanese third-person shooters tend to focus more on speed. There's no cover system. Headshots really don't matter. It's all about going fast because you're a freaking ninja. On top of that, you have a water-based jetpack on you, which can be used to not only fly around, but dash along the ground. I'm not kidding, Vanquish style. If you've ever played the game Vanquish, Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash has Vanquish dashes. On top of that, they have a card system because Japan loves cards. And, Okay, where do we begin? We got a team of 5. Each character, you can choose from a variety of different water guns, each one having, like, alternate fire modes. And on top of that, you choose a selection of cards, which you unlock as you play the game. And each card represents, like, different special moves and skills. And you get them randomly, and there's 3 of them assigned to left, up, and right on your D-pad. And there's a certain cooldown after, but these are all, like, special moves. Like, Mirai's card lets you shoot these bouncing energy balls everywhere. And Yomi's card lets you fire a giant tornado. And then you have, like, the assist cards, of which you can only have 3. And these tend to give you, like, floating gun turrets or giant robots that you can ride around in when you use them. These cards would definitely be one of the game's weaker aspects, though, because there's certain cards that everyone abuses, namely the shield. One of the cards gives you a shield, which makes you impervious to damage. And everyone just kind of spams them, and they're annoying. Admittedly, there's a bunch of actions you can take, which also initiate a shield, and so that's kind of irritating. The other irritating card is the one that prevents you from reloading. Great. On that note, reloading, yes, they're water guns, hold square to reload. You can move while reloading, you reload super fast, but the same water tank is used for both your gun and your jetpack, so your mobility is limited if you're constantly firing. Anyway, match starts. One of the things you'll notice, aside from your incredible speed, is the beefy freaking aim assist that you have. You can actually turn this on and off with L1, but your aim assist reticle area is huge. And you can actually hold L2 to lock onto an enemy. Now, you're listening to this and you're saying, lock on. You can lock on to enemies in a third-person shooter. Doesn't that completely defeat the purpose of a third-person shooter? But everyone is moving so fast and it's so crazy that, no, it actually works. You kind of need the lock-on because it's so fast. Like, it's actually a little virtual on-ish at times because of just the intense speed. I will say right now it definitely needs balance patches. Like, right now everyone playing in ranked mode is just using, like, you can level up your characters and your guns, and everyone is using the same max level gun, and a lot of people are using the same cards. And it's like, yeah, this needs to be tweaked. Thankfully, Senran Kagura actually patches itself a lot. I actually remember before Estival Versus came to America, they patched that game constantly for balance. They put in new costumes, new stages, new specialty finishes. They patched that game a lot, and they've already patched Peach Beach Splash twice. So I'm interested to see how that goes. The game has sold preposterously well in Japan, completely sold out, and they've sold over 10,000 digital copies on day 1, which I guess it's a pretty good haul for the first day. And yeah, like, the online mode in that is jumping more than the online mode in any Japanese game I've ever played. A US release, I've left out a lot of the racier things, like the finishing moves, but they have a finishing move that's actually kind of similar to Gears of War, except minus being ridiculously bloody or anything. They have a similar finishing move system. It's interesting, and I won't go into that here for the sake of our school's dignity. But the game is confirmed to be getting a US release. We don't know when, though. It usually takes about a year, but I think they might try to fast-track this one. Because usually the game comes out in Japan, and then there's like a couple months delay, and then they announce it. This time, the game was still like in development, and they said, oh, this is coming. Also, there will be a VR mode, but it's just the locker rooms, and it'll be patched in later. And so, disappointment there. Like, I wanted to play the whole game in VR. But It, other than that, it's going to be interesting to see how this game evolves. It's not quite as good as I was hoping it would be, but it's still pretty fun and interesting. And, yeah, I like the idea of a high-speed third-person shooter. I think there could be some potential here, and it'll certainly be the best Senran Kagura to play in online competitive play, because I've played the melee-based ones online, and they didn't quite work as well as they should, so this one should be good. There has been no talk of a Steam release, but I expect a Steam release sometime in the near future, because a lot of Asian companies are quickly learning that if you want the game to sell in America, you gotta release it on Steam. That's where everyone buys it. And on that note, Estival Versus, Senran Kagura Estival Versus just came out on Steam, along with the DLC for the Ikitosen characters, which is available on Steam and PS4. No clue if it's available on Vita or not. And while we're talking about that, they have announced that there will be at least 4 downloadable characters for Peach Beach Splash in the near future, which include, from Dead or Alive, Ayane, Marie Rose, and Honoka, because of course it's Marie Rose and Honoka, and Supersonico. So if you ever want to have the Honoka Supersonico mirror match, Peach Beach Splash will deliver in the very near future. Who knows what they're going to do with it beyond that. But I think that pretty thoroughly sums up the madness that is Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. Excited to see how it evolves, and I look forward to the US release so I can sink my teeth into the deep lore. Because the game is super long and it has a lot of talking. Every Senran Kagura game has hours of talking. If you're wondering about campaign length, each school has their own campaign, which is 10 levels long, and then after beating all 4, you unlock the final campaign, which is 15. Actually, I think it's 14. 14 episodes long. Then you have the side stories, which tend to be 5 episodes long each. And then you have just the straight no-plot tournament mode before even getting into online. So while you'll be able to breeze through story mode kind of quickish, like in a day or two, with some serious play, there's still a pretty beefy amount of content in there. And again, it's really more meant to be played online competitively, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it evolves. Anyway, it is now 2:50, so we should start wrapping things up. For a recap, anime in theaters. Your Name will be here April 7th. Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, April 26th. And live action goes to the shelves soon. I think that's March 30th. I talked about how great Chaos Code is. It is a fantastic fighting game made from a very small dev team, so cut it a little slack on some of the sprite size inconsistencies and the fact that it's not as well presented as something like Blaze Blue. I mentioned that Waku Waku 7 finally has a US release thanks to the Nintendo Switch. And speaking of the Switch, if you have a defective controller, send it back to Nintendo. They'll make it good for you by shoving some foam in it. Apparently it works. Talked about how Mass Effect Andromeda is the laughing stock of the internet. But, you know, it might not be terrible, but it's all over the place. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the core BioWare team didn't really make it. And BioWare isn't BioWare anymore anyway. Sonic Forces is the official name of the successor to Sonic Generations, which will be coming. I forgot when they said that was coming out. It's coming, and hopefully they won't screw it up because Sonic Generations is awesome, and if we can just get another one of those, it'll be great. The Dead or Alive 5 Halloween costume design contest is go. Google it up. It's on the official Dead or Alive 5 website, or at least it should be. Get your designs ready. Send them to Team Ninja. See if you can get your costume in the game. They're due by May 7th. Let's see. Also, there's a new Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth game announced. It is a prequel. It will be in America in early 2018. Whip and Yamazaki are confirmed to be coming for King of Fighters 14, and also King of Fighters Destiny is a CG animated series that will begin airing in the summer. I hope it's stupid. Orisa is now available for all versions of Overwatch. Radiant Historia is being remade on 3DS. And Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Curse will be available April 18th with gorgeous HD graphics and retro 8-bit graphics and the ability to play as Wonder Boy or Wonder Girl. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for listening to GameBabble Live. I'm your host, Jell. We will be back next Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. I hope you've enjoyed the show. And, also, don't forget to look into that whole, Toxic Doom situation. Here it is. Yeah, we had Dawn Chapman and Karen Nickel on here from Just Moms STL. You can find them at justmomsstl.com or justmomsstl.org. And Just Moms STL has a Facebook group to deal with the fact that there is a raging toxic doom fire right next to all of us listening on the radio right now. Just a smidge of a problem. And I can't stress this enough. When toxic waste is involved, anytime anyone says, nah, it's perfectly harmless, it's safe, they're lying through their teeth. Every time, all over the world, it's just how it works. That's how people deal with toxic waste. They just lie about it. So, be sure to, check them out and start yelling at your politicians about the fact that we're all gonna die horribly. Anyway, this is Jell. This has been GameBabble Live. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Now back to the music here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening.